now climbing these stairs to see a piece of real estate, as they say in America, which became infamous on September 11th, 2001. I've got Luke here from Change New York. Luke's famous for door-stepping politicians and Illuminati people and asking them the questions the mainstream media won't ask.
He would, make sure bills in Congress would not get passed that would help first responders. He would cut unemployment benefits. He would cut as much as he could of service and help for the men and women that gave everything, put their lives on the line and pretty much gave everything up to help rescue people. He threw them in the dumpster, and there's, many newspapers were coming out saying how Bloomberg is just spitting on all the unsung heroes who were here helping people. And ever since then, he's been a huge thorn in all the first responders.
But, what does that say? That's what I've been saying for years. These people have no empathy, no ability to empathize with the consequences of the lives, of the suffering, and the difficulties of others. They don't give a damn. They have no heart, and that's why they can do this and blame it on Arab terrorists who couldn't fly one-engine Cessnas and create all the consequences for firefighters and 3,000 families who suffered the death of loved ones, and it would not impact on them emotionally one jot. They're not like the rest of us. They're not like the massive humanity. They're not the same, and that's why they do what they do when we wouldn't even dream of it.
Building 7, which miraculously fell like a controlled demolition when it had been hit by no plane. And Larry Silverstein, the guy called Frank Lowy, bought the lease to the World Trade Center just before 9/11, when it was a diabolical business deal on the face of it, because these were known as what, white elephants?
Yeah, the big white elephants filled with asbestos.
Yeah, they were full of asbestos, the Twin Towers, and you were saying that it was estimated it would cost more to remove the asbestos than actually to pull them down.
Exactly.
And these businessmen, Lowy and Silverstein, were so bad businessmen, they actually bought the bloody lease and put massively more insurance on the buildings in case of terrorist attacks. And then there was a terrorist attack, and it all came down, and they got massive amounts of insurance on the building, and are now building this so-called Freedom Tower. Yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah,
Sure does.
Very good business sense.
And then Building 7, that's just the biggest thing. No, you can look at it, it's right here. It's just as big as the other one. Not as wide though. Just imagine the 6 seconds.
The Building 7 was about this side, down in 6 seconds.
Down in 6 seconds.
And of course, Silverstein talked about the fact that
They pulled it.
the authorities said, pull it. And of course, pull it is demolition parlance for a controlled demolition. But to put the charges into a controlled demolition, you have to spend days or weeks putting them in, don't you? So it all falls in on itself. But miraculously, they must have already been there.
And we actually talked to Larry, you can see it on our YouTube channel, we talked to Larry Silverstein, like, what did you mean by pull it? And of course he says firefighters, that's his retraction.
Right.
He says he talked to Fire Chief Nagro. But the thing is, Fire Chief Nagro said he never spoke to Larry Silverstein. And when we confronted Larry Silverstein with this information, he just didn't say a single word. You can see it on our YouTube channel. But we asked him, like, why did you say pull the building? It wasn't the firefighters. You lied. You said you talked to Fire Chief Nagro. You didn't talk to him. That's official. And now, what happened to Building 7? Like, why can't you answer the question? And he just literally, he wouldn't answer the question, and he just ran away.
Because he couldn't answer the question without accepting that he's a bloody liar.
Yeah, I even came to him, I was like, a lot of people have a lot of conspiracy theories. A lot of people say you did something wrong. Please try to clear the record. You could be a good guy, you could be a bad guy. Just be open with us and tell us what exactly you meant. And he just wouldn't say a single word.
What he's done that television interview, he said pull it, and then realise he's made a massive error.
Yeah.
What's this guy walking up and down?
So that's the new guy. The other
it?
guy behind him.
That's kind of funny. He's coming around the back here, this cock. And it's like looking at us like, we're having a chat. It's a camera. You know, chill out.
Yeah, that's actually a newer guy though.
The other guy. The other guys know you. You're saying that you get on quite well with them now.
Yeah, a lot of the guys are very very good, very respectful, very friendly. You know, there's one or two that always get mad, but it's been a huge difference when they pat you on the back and congratulate you and they thank you.
This is a big part of it when those in uniform and the dark suits of administrating the system, when the penny starts to drop with them, you know, the house of cards starts to loosen.
Yeah,
they've got to have the guts to do something about it, not just no, but
they can't use people against people. They can't use us against them because we're all one.
Yeah, exactly.
We're all this is the new Building 7. The old Building 7 was just as tall as this one, but a little bit wider. So it was just as wide as going up to here. So this free space, this park used to be the old Building 7. Now if you go on to Google Maps, and my friend just pointed this out to me, you see a pyramid with an all-seeing eye in the middle of it. So you have the water fountain in the middle representing the eye with the big red thing representing the people. And then you just have this pyramid that represented the old Building 7, well, it was part of it. So this little park that they erected, and surprisingly they made a little pyramid right where the old,
And of course, for people who are new to this, the all-seeing eye, which you see on the dollar bill, is a classic symbol of this network of bloodlines. And so they put a pyramid, an all-seeing eye, actually not what is now with this building, but what would have been the building on which Building 7 was standing.
And then by the subway station, you got the eyes everywhere, right along this subway station. Like as we go just down here.
Okay. This is the subway station right next to Ground Zero, and you were saying, Luke, that these eyes were put up after 9/11, right?
Yeah, these eyes were put up after 9/11. There's even like a big eye monument further down over there. But these eyes are everywhere you go, especially only in this train station. Right. No other train station, 400 of them in New York City, has these eyes as this one does.
And the eye is one of the classic symbols of this network of bloodlines. And if you go far enough back, the ancients used to symbolize the non-humans, shall we say, the extraterrestrials, whatever you want to call them, as the watchers. And they used to symbolize them as an eye. And all the way through thousands of years this has come. And here it is. Why would you put eyes on a subway station, what we call a tube station in London, after a inside job by the network whose symbol is the eye? Why would you then put eyes on this station? Because they're laughing at us, taking the piss,
and the symbolic
but not for bloody long.
Yeah. And the symbolic eye by Building 7 as well.
Yeah, and the eye you told us about Building 7, yeah.
Look at the monuments over there.
What, the eye of the monument?
And there's like a little, it's weird. It's like a whole globe. There's like an eye over there.
What, if we come out this way, we'll see it?
I think so, I'm not sure. It's a big train station. My friend Matt went up ahead to check.
Queen Semiramis, Ishtar from Babylon, holding the flame of Nimrod, telling America that from having liberty there. That's the symbol, or one of them, of the network interbreeding through thousands of years that dictate our lives. Right, well here we are actually in Wall Street, and like I say, it reminds me so much about of the city of London. Over there is the New York Stock Exchange, and you know, when they've built these major buildings to do with finance, etc., I mean, that gives me kind of feel of Rome or Greece, and you look in London at the Bank of England and other buildings in that area, you see the same thing. Round here we've got, again, the pillars, giving it the same feel, and that's not an accident. This is architecture put there by design, because it symbolizes and reflects something in this network of families. This is George Washington, the first president of the United States, and the first of many high Freemason presidents of the United States, doing a little Freemasonic hand deal there. And here, Luke was telling me this is where the first Bill of Rights was signed, right?
Yeah, first Bill of Rights was drafted.
It was drafted.
So this is the first congressional hall in United States history. This is where George Washington first took his oath, and then they had to move it later on to Washington, D.C. But this was pretty much where the Bill of Rights were started. Right here.
And what's the irony there when you've got the Bill of Rights basically having its birthplace here, and now all around it are the very banking families, the very banking cartel that has systematically removed rights from the American people ever since, and they're very close to completing the job. And this is like the City of London. It's one of the epicenters from which global control comes out of, which of course is overwhelmingly based on the control of money, lending people money that doesn't exist and charging them interest on it. And by doing that, they've been able to hijack the real wealth of the world by getting people, governments, businesses in vast amounts of debt, and when they can't pay it back, taking the real assets, the real resources. And if people really realize, particularly the House of Rothschild, and you look around here and you see different banks, and in the City of London you see different banks, in the high street. Really, if at least the vast majority just said Rothschild Bank, then that would pretty much tell the story. And what the Rothschilds have done by lending people or countries money to fight wars after engineering the wars to happen, and then when the different countries funded in the wars by the Rothschilds then destroy each other's countries or whatever, the Rothschilds then lent more money to rebuild the country, and in this way they own countries. We have this farce of, we're the government of the country. No, you are basically the administrators of a state of bankruptcy, which they don't tell us about. Nice one, George. What were you thinking of, mate, eh? What did you start? And people look at him and say, oh yeah, first president of the United States, George stood for freedom. Like bloody hell he did.
I always knew the British hated George Washington.
You're going to be a real tourist. I've got to be a real tourist.
How the Freemasons being infiltrated by the Illuminati.
Yeah, there are some letters in which he talked about that. Yeah, but the British were controlling that all those wars of the War of Independence, and the British lost on purpose, because when you look at the detail, because what they were doing was managing a process of replacing control you could see, control by the British Crown, which, in the end, people rebel against control they can see, touch and taste, and they replaced it with a control that Americans couldn't see. And of course, you don't rebel about not being free when you think you are. So it basically replaced a tangible control with a hidden control, and he was a conduit to start that process. Big controller now is the banks, and look, now the biggest buildings in the cities are overwhelmingly the banks. I walk around downtown Los Angeles, massive buildings, banks, and of course in Wall Street you expect to find it, but it's kind of dwarfing humanity and looking down on it. It's very, very symbolic.